Welcome into the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Kevin Reichard of Ballpark Digest. Kevin, how are you?
I am good this fine day. And you, Jesse?
I'm doing well. I've really enjoyed baseball being back, especially having matinees on. So the ability to turn on baseball at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, to be able to watch it in the afternoon, to go to bed watching baseball. And you've already had the chance to go to a game in person.
Yeah, I started the season binging, and then on Easter Sunday, I went down to American Family Field to take in an early season Brewers game. Uh, so my Easter was not spent in church; it was spent at the Church of Baseball, so to speak.
Did you go with your American family?
I did not. My American family decided to sleep in and stay home. So I was there by myself, watched the game from the press box, and it was an interesting experience to be sure.
Well,
We
yeah, let's get into this.
Let's get into it. They were operating with 25% capacity, like most MLB teams are, and it was sort of surreal to watch the crowd in action because they're using pod seating. Um, and the pod seating is set up sort of in a row across the bowl, so it's like rows of people, sort of crisscrossing like a chessboard almost. The crowd was good. The Twins were in town, so that always brings in some Minnesotans from out of town, although they weren't very loud. Um, it was a good crowd. The fans seemed really happy to be there. Um, Walking the ballpark a little. I couldn't much because the Brewers kind of requested that reporters not wander, and I actually respect that. But I didn't take the most direct route in and out of the press box. Um, so it was interesting to see the concessions, which were a little scaled back. Many teams are not selling draft beer this year, for instance. The Brewers are because Wisconsin, and so those booths were wide open. But a lot of the specialty booths were closed or converted to mobile app pickup areas.
Hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of traffic in the concourses. Um, all the other game day festivities on the field were the same, national anthem, running sausages, things like that. Um, and the ballpark's been upgraded to reflect the new naming rights deal. So the AmFam logos, where the Miller Park logo was in the exterior of the park facing the freeway. I wrote it up in today's Ballpark Digest, so take a look at the photo. I didn't take many inside because, again, not a ton of access to the ballpark. Saw the chalet in action. Bernie Brewer finally got to go down the slide in the seventh inning of a Twins blowout after Jackie Bradley Jr. homered. So his little hut is now a Swiss chalet, a little different from the early days in County Stadium when, of course, he slid into a stein of beer. No beer stein being floated into these days. But on the whole, it was still a pretty respectable game experience. I had friends who were there, as it ends up. Um, it's not the same, obviously. And I think we've got to reconcile ourselves to the fact that we're not going to see normalcy until August or September.
I mean, from the minor leagues, the feeling has been let's go month by month. So let's start off the season restrictions very strict, and then let's go from there to see how things change, especially as more and more vaccinations take place.
Yeah, you are seeing capacity limits revisited monthly. And I've written about this a couple times. In fact, since um, my visit there, the Brewers announced that they were already changing up their seating patterns to include more two-person pods. Here locally in Dane County, restrictions were lifted as of today for outdoor occupancy. You still have to have social distancing, but there's no hard limits anymore, and the mask mandate will not be mandated, which is good news for the Madison Mallards, obviously, and also for the Forward Madison football team, soccer team. So we're seeing that happen a lot.
Football in a different country.
Yes, the European football team. Um, But I think you're going to see that a lot. I mean, what are you starting out in Lansing at?
Currently, Michigan, it's 20%. So for us, 11,000 capacity ballpark, so about 2,200 folks or so.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's doable. And I would imagine that Michigan will be, and they've already revisited once, didn't they? Originally, the Tigers were 10%.
Michigan is right now leading the country in new COVID cases. So we'll see. I heard someone describe the new map with states either green or red based on low or high number of cases. That Michigan basically has stubbed its thumb. It stubbed its thumb. It's the country right now. You can see the hand. America's high five is hurting. So
Yeah. I mean, I've seen those numbers. New York, New Jersey, still cases are going up. Michigan was one of them. Florida was another. So we'll see what sort of capacity limits we have going forward. Uh, Wisconsin's been going down. Texas, oddly enough, is very low right now. So even though, I mean, the Rangers opened up at full capacity, although
yes,
not a full house, interestingly enough. You know, they only had 38,000 people there, and they were selling for 40,000 some. The
people see the
Astros,
writing on the wall with that team. They're not going to be that good. No, it was surprising, but then again, the governor didn't show up either.
yeah, all this politics, and I don't want to open up that can of worms with MLB in the All-Star game because I'm not, I don't have strong feelings either way. I love the ball. I love Truist Park and I love Atlanta. So I'm a little sad to see that they lost the All-Star game. I think they were sort of collateral damage to a much larger discussion. Um, but at the end of the day, I think the major league people were acting in very good faith in moving the game.
What did you think of the choice for Colorado?
I was a little surprised. You know, I know the rationale was that Coors Field officials and Visit Denver and Colorado tourism people have been pitching a future All-Star game hosting. So they had the paperwork done and forms done and everything. But I would have thought Milwaukee would have received really major consideration, especially when the state is working totally with local guidelines on occupancy. And I'm guessing by the time the All-Star game happens, you could have a very good crowd there. And sentimentally, it's where Henry Aaron started and ended his career, both in the minors and the majors. I mean, he started out with the Eau Claire Bears in MILB. He was a professional in the Negro Leagues before that. But then he broke in with the Braves. When the Braves moved, he came back to the Brewers as a DH. And Milwaukee would have been a really sentimental choice. So I was a little surprised. I also was a little surprised to see Tampa Bay getting absolutely no consideration whatsoever, even though there are some capacity issues. Tampa Bay's never hosted a game and probably never will.
I mean, when they start that work share with Montreal, no. um,
Yeah.
about Henry Aaron, there's that great trivia question with Aaron, Ruth, and Willie Mays that all of them entered the major leagues in one city and then exited the major leagues in the same city, but just the other league.
Yes. Isn't that something? That is a. He's also part of another great trivia question is who's well, of course now you're going to know the answer, but which brother combo hit the most home runs in Major League history?
Tommy and Hank.
Tommy and Hank. That's right.
I'll correct that with the Giants and Willie Mays didn't switch leagues, just went Giants and Mets in New York. But
Right.
Babe Ruth was Boston Red Sox to the Boston Braves.
Yeah.
And especially Babe entering the discussion right now because as you look at the early part of this young baseball season, there have been some great moments like Miguel Cabrera homering in the snow and sliding into second base to start off the season because he had no idea where the baseball had gone. And now, by the way, from the snow on opening day in Detroit, Michigan, you can get a sunburn currently. But Shohei Ohtani doing the Babe Ruth thing of being a great pitcher and a great hitter all in the same inning.
Man, he is a human highlight reel, isn't he?
The ability, the flat out, I think of Bo Jackson for people who we don't know if Ohtani's body and his injury past is known. We don't know how much he's actually going to optimize in terms of on the field results. but
Right.
the pure ability that the man possesses is awesome.
Yeah, I hope he makes the home run derby. It would be fun to see him do that and then pitch in the game after that. Um,
That's the whole fun of going to Colorado for the home run derby is take the balls out of the humidifier.
yeah, let him loose. Let him bang away. So there's been a lot of great highlights. I was sort of sad to see Fernando Tatis Jr. go down um,
Yes,
from a violent swing as it ends up.
this is part of what bothers me as a sports fan, and I'll extend it beyond baseball because I love football. And how often do you see watching an NFL game, a college football game, um, preseason, whatever it might be on any play, a player suffers an injury, contact injury, non contact injury, and that's it for their year. In baseball, in general, this just happens to pitchers that you blow out your shoulder, you blow out your elbow, and that's it, you're done. So to see that happen to Tatis at the plate,
It was really, I mean, very sad. You know, he's obviously a rising star and positioned as the face of future baseball. And then he goes down. What are they saying now? 4 to 6 weeks?
I did not see.
Yeah, I don't think they determined early on. There's a lot of great young players in the game, though. I made a point of watching the Blue Jays a couple times. What a fun team. And you know those guys really well, having
I
watched them come
do.
through the system.
I do know them well. Bo Bichette hit two more home runs yesterday.
Oh, man,
Um,
he's fun to watch.
Juan Soto, as the Washington Nationals finally got their year going, of course, delivering with the walk-off, they were the story because they had a COVID outbreak that stopped them from opening up the year at home to celebrate their 2019 World Championship.
Yeah, they finally launched. Um, you know, it'll be interesting to see how many COVID outbreaks we get. Other sports handled it fairly well, and I'm hoping the Nationals were sort of an isolated incident.
You and me
Um,
both.
I'm very much hoping so because Major League Baseball really needs to have a good year. The controversy about the All-Star game is going to be a short-term hit. You know, I hate to say, and this the sports landscape is changing so dramatically, and Major League Baseball has to find its fit in it.
Mhm.
I think the NBA's done a good job. I think football um, may saturate the market, adding another game, and you're sort of seeing a two-tier football system with, you know, games of the week versus, you know, the Jaguars Bears at noon from Jacksonville. You know, they just can't compete. So football's kind of an odd deal. Um, Basketball is interesting. Did you see the ratings? And I'm really going off a tangent here.
That's
Did
okay.
you see the rating for the women's NCAA games?
Was it a 4.1? I saw it was just enormous.
It was enormous, and I think that's great. I think that the sport it's been worth watching for a long time now. I think the skill level is getting to be pretty amazing, especially if you're a purist because you don't see a lot of dunking, obviously, but you see a lot of passing. You see a lot of much better shooting. Um, so we're seeing the sports landscape sliced up into more and more thinner slices of pie, but the pie is growing.
One
Um,
of the big complaints with women's basketball for years was it's UConn and that's it. It was Tennessee and UConn, and then Tennessee um, is no longer at the level that it was, and understandably so. But the rise of a South Carolina, the rise of a Baylor, the rise of this year, especially Stanford. Um, so to see Connecticut get upset by Arizona, that gets eyes upon it. And to see Stanford and South Carolina play right down to the buzzer, to see Connecticut and Baylor play right down to the buzzer. And that's, to my mind, what has made baseball so exciting right now is the Dodgers are great. And the Dodgers continue to work to improve themselves on a year in, year out basis, whether it's via trade with Mookie Betts or free agency with Trevor Bauer, or simply bringing up their own prospects because their farm system is so rich. And yet, we see what San Diego is. Even with Fernando Tatis's injury, San Diego is still loaded. And you look around baseball, the Atlanta Braves have so much good young talent, But then there's the Washington Nationals in their division, who there's a reason why they won the World Series, and Juan Soto is not going anywhere. Teams across the American League and the National League with their own superstars make for a much more entertaining, compelling game.
Yeah, and you've seen previously terrible teams emerging this year. The Mets are playing decently. Maybe not managed perfectly, but they're playing pretty well. They've got a game plan. And whether or not the bullpen allows them to meet that game plan remains to be seen. But I think parity is great for the game. I think the young talent's great for the game. I think that 457-foot home runs hit by Yankees is good for the game too.
You can have those home runs, and we do, with stealing bases. And there
Yes.
has been such a great commitment to add more aggressiveness in, and we're seeing that paying off.
Yes, speed is an asset that really pleases fans, and that's been sort of underestimated in recent years on the analytics side. Because the baseball instincts where that combines speed with great baseball running savvy can't be measured as easily as exit velocity, for instance. And so there's still some intangibles. The Probably not many viewers of this watched the Twins and Tigers yesterday. Extra innings, great game, and it came down to base running savvy. The Twins did not score in the top of the 10th after a base runner was thrown out at home. The Tigers did with some really savvy base running. And that was a game where the extra inning rule, which people have complained about, worked perfectly. It worked. It added excitement at the end of the game, and the best team really did win.
I think a reason why someone complains about it is also the reason why it works. And that is you are beginning the half inning with an immediate rally. So if you're a baseball purist, you did not earn that runner at second base. That runner should not be at second base because there's nothing that the offensive team did to get that runner into scoring position. You're just starting with a ready made rally. So the whole idea of being born at third base and thinking that you hit a triple, hey, you were born at second base now that we have gone to the 10th inning. But when a team is the home team, and when you can stop that runner from scoring in the top half of the frame, when you strand them, and it was exciting because the top of the 10th began immediately, if I recall, with the Nelson Cruz single. And so immediately the Twins have runners at the corners and nobody out, and the Tigers got out of it. And at the bottom half of the inning, now all they've got to do is score that runner and they win. And as it turned out, it's the Rule 5 sensation Akil Baddoo. Sensation. First pitch home run of his major league career on Sunday. On Monday, a grand slam. And on Tuesday, the walk-off winner. But when you go to the bottom half of the inning and all the home team has to do is score that guy, or if the visiting team scores that player in the top half and that's it, and the home team in the bottom half immediately drives that player in with an RBI single or draws a walk, whatever it is, and the game-winning run is on. Yes. So did you earn it? No, because the whole point of it is we're going to give you a rally and can you take advantage of it? So I do not see those two opinions contradicting themselves, that it bothers the purist because it's unearned. At the same time, yes, immediately it puts you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, it's a change of pace, isn't it? I mean, you may have had 6 scoreless innings before that, and all of a sudden you're in rally time, which kind of seems to fit the national mood in a way for sports fans. It raises the heart rate immediately, and I love it personally. I'm a big fan of it. I'm not entirely sure I'm with the purists when it comes to their love of 17 inning marathons and this love for 33 inning minor league games and books being written about it. It's like I'm not so sure the players loved it as much as the fans conceptually did. So
When they're better, Kevin, is when they're over.
yeah,
Because once they're over, then you can look back at it and laugh. If you've ever seen a hockey game that goes to multiple overtime after overtime after overtime, or soccer games where it just stretches onward, you see players who have no legs, who they're trying to get that adrenaline pumping, And that's what tends to happen in a baseball game that drags onward is the energy is gone. So you're just trying to tap into energy from somewhere, but it's not like you're still seeing high quality baseball. You're hoping for that glimmer, that spark of something.
Well, after banning steroids, of course the recovery is going to be slower. So maybe you're arguing for steroids now.
Or
The purist
greens,
would be.
uh, as a kid, and I think it comes down to being a fan. As a kid, if I was watching an extra inning game, I either wanted it to end in the 10th or I wanted it to go all night long. I wanted an Iowa Baseball Confederacy because, all right, let's do this. Let's enter the Twilight Zone. And now working in baseball, there's a huge concern this year that there's going to be a lot of pitching, whether it's injuries or simply trying to find pitching depth over the course of a long season after last year being the half year. And when you're hurting for arms and how many players for the Oakland A's are already on the injured list, you just have to have games end as quick as possible. That's why the A's, I don't know if you saw this, for the first time that I've ever seen, a position player made his major league debut as a pitcher before he ever got into the game as a position player and had a plate appearance in Kai Tom
I
for
saw
Oakland.
that.
So
Amazing.
yeah, it's as a fan, yeah, let's go. Let's play 24. Let's play 33, whatever it might be. But there are other ramifications at play.
Yeah, pitching's at a premium. The Brewers just traded for two pitchers, giving up a legitimate major league player. I mean, he was not in their plans necessarily, but I think you're going to see teams making more of those position player for multiple pitchers sort of trades and praying that they can get partial seasons out of some of these people. So, a good time to be a 4A pitcher. Let's put it that way.
We've talked about this before. Once the are they partner leagues start up?
Yeah.
Once the partner leagues start up, once the Atlantic League gets going, teams will be checking out all of the different statistics and the analytics coming in from those players just to try to fortify the system as everybody looks for depth in June, July, August.
Absolutely. All the cameras that MLB is buying for the Pioneer League will probably be a good investment come, mid to late July when they're restocking their farm systems and they got fresh arms sitting in Missoula and Billings. So easy scouting.
In the past, and I'm going to speak for the Lansing Lugnuts whom I work for, 25-man roster. And we would sometimes travel with more than that because you never know. So we would go around on the team bus, 28, 29, we'd pull up into a town and we'd see how things were and we'd have players ready to activate if we needed them. I could see this year the opposite. So we at the high A level have a 30-man roster and I could see us pulling up into a town with 24, 25 players because we've got guys who are hurt and it just, we can't send players in at a moment's notice anymore. So look, figure it out with your normal 25-man roster.
Yeah, this is a year you're going to see the depth of minor leagues be tested after scaling back. I mean, they're stashing players in the alternate training sites, granted, but for high A and low A, it's going to be an interesting year because all of a sudden there's no short season, or guys who were assigned a short season and brought up before they even set foot in Mahoning Valley or the New York Penn League. So we'll see.
Let's get into the best of the ballparks, which
Yeah,
has been going on ballparkdigest.com.
Yeah, we just finished the vote on Sunday at midnight, or Monday at midnight, I guess technically speaking, for the college baseball vote, and it exploded on us, which I was not expecting. We ended up having about almost 35,000 individuals vote at one point or another during the competition. Many of them voted more than once. And at the end of the day, it was O'Brate Stadium, the new home of the Oklahoma State University Cowboys, winning by a 54 to 46% margin over Baum-Walker Stadium, home of the Arkansas Razorbacks, Woo Pig Suey. So it was a pretty much knockout battle. Both received more votes in that final round than they did in the first three rounds. But Oklahoma State was pushing it on social media, and they're pushing it today. And so our Twitter feed's kind of blowing up, as well as our Facebook feed. It's always fun to do the best of the ballparks. I mean, it's one of maybe my total favorite time of the year. And it was fun to see such fresh energy come into the competition. We also did the spring training ballparks with really good turnout, like almost triple last year, which was a good year, ironically. And but it was repeat winners again. It was Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium and Salt River Fields in Arizona. And both fine facilities. They both work hard. But the sort of breath of fresh air with the college competition really was very satisfying. And the MLB vote starts Friday.
What does the winner get? What's Oklahoma State have coming its way?
It will get a trophy, I think. We haven't done trophies in the past, but I think we will this year. It kind of depends on how we can arrange logistics. They get bragging rights, which in Oklahoma State, as far as social media is concerned, seems to be a pretty big deal. And it's a nice honor for a ballpark that was supposed to open last year. The opening date was March 20th. Well, when the country shut down on March 12th, that shut down everything. And so they had the shiny new ballpark and no one to play in it. So it's a nice comeback story in a way.
With Major League Baseball, you've been posting for each team. Here are the updates. Here's what's going on as we enter the brand new season, which that's a pretty good way to link in with Best of the Ballparks Major Leagues. Which stadiums that you've seen have you, as you've written up, here's what's new, here's what's going on, has lit up your eyes, caught your interest?
Well, that's one reason I went to the Brewers game, because of the offseason changes the Brewers made. They added some specialty spaces as well. I did not, because I had other stuff going on, I couldn't make the Twins preview yesterday. The Twins are not doing a whole lot. It seems to be that teams are not embarking on a whole lot new for this season. They're scaling back on concessions. Many teams are not even selling draft beer. They're selling cans. And then you've got the delayed changes from the year before finally being unveiled. It looked really cool, like Dodger Stadium. I'm going to try to get out there as soon as I can to see that. Those changes were implemented for last year. Fans never saw them. Seattle's the same way. T-Mobile Park with the rebranding, with the new look, fans didn't see that either. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there for that. Those are the two big things. Obviously, Texas, with the 38,000 fans on hand. Some teams are just treating it sort of like a normal season opening, with new concession openings and things like that. So it's all over the place. Let's put it that way.
That's great.
The Tigers didn't do anything different. I mean, they just sort of announced and.
I mean, there's the feeling, and I don't blame teams for doing this, of back to baseball. Hey.
Yes.
All you fans who missed us, we missed you. Just come on back and let's just enjoy some baseball again together, with the limited attendance, or unless you're the Rangers, with the attendance that we are bringing in for these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a movement in baseball. We discussed it about a month ago on the podcast about the return to stress and that'll be true in the minors too. So we'll see how far that goes. Right now, I suspect it's going to be a winning strategy, because the hardcore fans are the ones willing to pay the bucks and go through the inconveniences of going to games. If you're a casual fan, you might not want to deal with the hassles of getting to a game, especially in a place like Yankee Stadium, where you have to have a negative COVID test or vaccination proof to get into the ballpark for Yankees or Mets. So that's the lesson from spring training, is that the hardcores were there. The hardcores reached capacity, but then after that, demand just diminished. There was no call for 10,000 fans to be at Sloan for Cubs games, for instance.
If you're going to show up with your inflatable trash can to boo the Astros, you're not a casual fan.
That was fun footage. I enjoyed that. The Astros are going to be living that down for a long time, even after every participant in that's long gone, aren't they?
Yes, there hasn't been any catharsis. Fans need to have this catharsis, and they're going to get it all this year.
Yeah. Sorry about the phone ringing. It actually rarely rings here, so I'll just talk through it. How about that?
Is there anything else that you wanted to get to before we get into our term from the baseball thesaurus?
No, I think we've discussed, opening of the season, the first week, mostly seen on TV, but some live. I think it's been a strong start to the season, quite honestly. I was not sure it was going to be, but I'm pretty happy after seeing a game in person and watching a lot of. I've been like you, I suspect, a lot of binge-a-thons between MLB.com offerings and the ESPN broadcasts. I will say one more thing, totally unrelated to anything else. In the past, I sort of slagged on Boog-Sciambi. Man, he sounded good from Wrigley Field this year. He sounded revitalized. Last year, I thought he was just dead weight on the national broadcast. And this year with the Cubs, man, he sounded great.
He's got a fastball. And I've got my metaphors that I like to use with broadcasters. So your changeup, for example, is your ability to tell stories. Your fastball, though, some broadcasters can only throw 89. Some broadcasters can throw 93. And some guys can really hum it in there. And when Boog-Sciambi is feeling it, that's a great game to watch and listen to.
He was better than the game was on the field opening day, quite honestly. But Matt, he sounded great. So props to him. So what's our term of the day?
So it's not actually going to come from the baseball thesaurus because it's a term I'd never heard of before until yesterday. Neil Solondz from the Tampa Bay Rays, he heard Joe Madden use this maybe in a pregame scrum, and they heard this term before, and he was wondering if I knew the origin of it. So I went to look it up because, unlike Neil, I hadn't heard the term before. So let me throw it at you. Do you know what I mean when I say to one hand Fred?
I have no idea.
The one hand Fred. It's not in the Dixon Baseball Dictionary. And in looking for this term all over, I only found limited quotes of it, limited uses of it. I love it. One hand Fred comes from Dusty Baker. It's a Dusty Bakerism. Is there actually a guy named Fred who this was named after? Well, in the book that I read, that in which it was all written up, according to everybody, no, it doesn't sound like it. Maybe Dusty has someone in mind, but as far as anyone knows, probably not. The book is called The Last 9 Innings, that they shared the definition of one hand Fred, and it came right from Dusty's former player, Matt Williams. Remember when Dusty was managing the Giants? To one hand Fred means imagine a batter. So two hands are on the bat, and you get fooled by a pitch. So your top hand flies off the bat. Well, you still can, as a batter, just throw your bat at the ball. You say, I'm not going to worry about power. I'm not going to worry about trying to hit it squarely. All I'm going to do is just bring that bat at the ball and see what happens when that momentum of the pitch hits the barrel. And maybe you can one-hand Fred it into the outfield. That is the one-hand Fred. That top hand flying off and the batter going, you fooled me, you got me, but let's see what happens. There's your great baseball term. Thanks, Dusty Baker. And Joe Madden was the person who used it, learning it from Dusty, trying to keep this alive. We'll keep that term going because we see one-hand Freds all the time as a credit to the pitcher, but as it turns out, sometimes it's a credit to the hitter too.
It's perfectly descriptive because everyone has that image. They know exactly how that happens in a baseball game. Just the flailing with the one hand, just praying for the foul ball, foul tip. Don't let me go down.
Yes, yes. Just try to make contact, and who knows, maybe you might put it somewhere where the fielders aren't.
Well, college baseball, you get a home run with one hand. So
that's right.
In the old days with the gorilla bats.
There was an all-star game in the 90s, I think it was. That was the first time I'd ever seen a player. It was Ruben Sierra, who I think he broke his bat, but at the very least, he one-hand threaded a home run. I was in awe of Ruben Sierra's power.
That's a lot of strength.
Yes, it is. Well, Kevin, that'll do it for us for today. But coming up next week, let's get a little saintly, right?
Yep. We will be hosting Sean Aronson and Derek Scherer of the Saints to discuss St. Paul Saints to discuss the move to affiliated ball, how they don't plan on running operations any differently in affiliated ball. And they both worked in affiliated ball before, so it's not exactly foreign ground to them, but it should be interesting chat.
I love it. Well, keep it tuned. Go to ballparkdigest.com. You can find us at Ballpark Digest. Real big thanks to you for keeping us company. And Kevin Reichard, any final thoughts?
No, thanks to everyone who reads the site and votes in the competitions and gives feedback. We really appreciate it all.
And here's to you, Akil Badu. For Kevin Reichard, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this has been your Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat.